In a gaming industry where critics, YouTubers, and gamers are obsessed with the idea of only ever playing the highest rated games, I can't help but find amusement and comfort in janky ones. Games that are not very good, won't win any awards, and yet, the jank is entertaining enough that these games circle back into being fun, kinda like how camp art and cheese can make a bad movie into a very fun one. Lucius 2 reminded me of why I love that. The first game already is a hilarious train wreck as it is, but the sequel somehow manages to take those experiences and make an even dumber game. It's Eurojank at its finest, and it's a really fun bad game, but before we go any deeper into it, we should first cover the basics. The game takes place roughly 6 months after the events of the first game. After Dante Manor burned down to the ground, Lucius is committed at the very hospital he was born at. His link to the devil, however, has become severed. His powers are gone. And word is coming out that something weird is happening at the nearby town of Ludlow, something he is not responsible for. So now, Lucius has to kill his way out of the hospital, regain his powers, and once again prove himself to his true father. And that's about it. Much like the first game, this is a horror game where you are the killer, with an extra janky touch of Hitman in its DNA. But while the first game was super linear, this one turns each of its chapters into a somewhat deep sandbox. Once you break out of the shock therapy room, you are let loose. While of course you got your main objectives to complete that will get you to the next level, you are for the most part left to your own devices on how to accomplish them. Every person present in each level is a victim that you can kill, best exemplified with a tutorial victim giving you 3 options on how to do him in. This is where the 2 main gameplay challenges come in. You have to explore the levels and scavenge for tools that you can use to kill your victims, or lure them into hazardous places where they can suffer unfortunate accidents. And you also got a slight stealth element with restricted areas, where you need to stay out of sight to prevent any present adult from busting you and giving you a game over.
Around here.
So how do you kill people in this game? You can do the basics, of course. Find some food and combine it with pills and throw it onto the floor. Since people have a tendency to snack on anything they find on the floor, you'll be getting an easy kill there. You can find some environmental hazards like some loose electrical cables. Just throw a wallet or some cigarettes to lure some poor unlucky soul into its path and watch as they fry themselves for their own stupidity. If you are feeling extra mischievous, however, you can do some sabotaging, like attaching a defibrillator to some water pipes near a sink, ready to electrocute whoever is unlucky enough to try to wash their hands in it. Or finding the water pump for a sprinkler system and pour acid on it, then start a fire that will melt away anyone unlucky enough to be in the room. But if you really want to crank up the slapstick, you can find oxygen tanks, aim them carefully, if the game's janky physics allows it, and use them as makeshift missiles to blast your victims in very hilarious ways. And this is just some of the more immediate things you can do to achieve your objectives. As the levels progress, you can add a couple more dominoes where you can take on multiple people at the same time. Out of this before we even start to talk about what you can do with your demonic powers, which isn't much, but it's still worth talking about. This time around, your powers come in the form of a really janky skill tree. You get 3 main powers: mind control, telekinesis, and pyrokinesis. All of them come with their own ups and downs, and all of them with their own sub-powers that you can use for some extra mischief. Telekinesis is basically your main driving force throughout the game. It's how you manipulate everything around you and carry your items. Not much to say that I haven't mentioned before. Mind control is where things get a bit more fun, where the dominoes start to stack up. I'll elaborate more on this later, but because of the game's own jank, sometimes your own schemes may not go according to plan. And when that happens, mind control is perfect so you can go for a plan B. Like say, breaking open the elevator doors, mind control whoever is near, and just walk them down the elevator shaft right into their deaths. And you can do this repeatedly, turning your victims into glorified lemmings. Or if you really feel like piling out the corpses as fast as possible, you can use flammable items to cause an explosion. Take down whoever was near its radius, then mind control anyone who is in the vicinity to walk into the flames. And you can do this over and over again for as long as the fire lasts. But if you decide to really invest into the mind control skill tree, you can even go as far as to weaponize the people you control. Give them weapons Lucius himself can't carry due to his size and lack of strength, and just have them kill people for you. It is just as devious as it is hilarious. All of these you can accomplish if you decide to jump straight away into the killings. But as I said earlier, this game has Hitman DNA on it. Before you start killing people and breaking up a number of scripts, you can take a bit of time to explore and observe. It's never explained why, but taking a look at every person in the hospital and loot log, you are given little snippets of information to what each person is doing. From that information, if you explore the levels further, you can find ideas and materials on how to do more specialized kills. Have a bit of a narrative going on leading to your victim's untimely demise, provided of course that you didn't accidentally kill a key person, completely breaking the script. And this is where the jank reminds you that this is not a good game. Listing flaws can be rather redundant at this point, but I think they are worth pointing out, because these can actually hurt the game and remind you why it reviewed poorly.
Hey there, where's your mommy and dad?
For as much as I am praising the sandbox and the freedom to kill your victims however you please, there is a limit to what you can do due to the game's own incompetence. Things that should be viable skills end up being ineffective for one reason or another. Like spilling soap water on the floor, making your victims slip and crash into stuff, and yet somehow not dying from it. Or failing to slip into a hazard because there's no momentum if you somehow missed a teeny tiny spot.
Hey there, where's your mommy and dad?
Pyrokinesis ended up being a big letdown too, at least the base one. The game has flammable materials in droves, and yet the little spark power you can use whenever you want is only ever useful to kill anyone smoking, and finding someone doing that at all is already a rarity. The only real use of pyrokinesis only comes in if you invest enough to get regenerating mana, or get a fire aura that can actually set things on fire. But that requires you to do some grinding, and by that point, mind control and telekinesis already are offering you more fun alternatives. And then there is the intentional humor. One detail about this sequel is that while the first game failed enough on its own that it became entertaining, Campart and Jank are good because they fail in enough places that they are fun to experience. There are moments in this game where the developers try to be in on the joke with the audience, but those intentional moments of humor, they didn't really land. I cannot show gameplay of these bits mainly because it's not YouTube friendly at all, but trust me when I say, some of these attempts at humor can go from feeling forced to downright feel tasteless. They can potentially sour the experience, and since I can showcase them to you, you may have to take my word for it. So I will say it would have been better off for the developers to just let the humor come naturally from the jank and the bad writing and the silly voice acting. And since we're on the topic of the voice acting, I guess we can talk about the story. What little there is really, since this game is more gameplay focused than ever. While the first game was straightforward with the idea of murdering everyone at the mansion to send souls to hell, this one instead takes the premise of The Omen and makes it extra stupid. Rather than keep up with the honesty of the demonic teams, the writing starts spinning the idea that pushing for the apocalypse is being done for the good of humanity. Detective MacGuffin, no seriously that's his name, is told that this is all part of the Lord's plan and that the devil is just playing his role. And because MacGuffin is an idiot, he believes it.
You have been able to sense it all along. Deep inside you, there's been something telling you to do the right thing.
But I'm Catholic?
Yes. So am I. We are all just part of his plans. My job is to make things slightly more interesting.
There is some fun mysteries going on, like finding out who is causing trouble on the same level Lucius was doing, and learning a little extra lore as to what Lucius is being tested for by his father. But it's also clumsily written, and with the borderline slapstick nature of the kills, it's just so amusingly bad, I like it. So when everything is said and done, would I recommend this game? No. Not really. Not at all. Not unless you are like me and get a certain amusement from taking a look at games that made an honest effort to achieve something, but failed in just the right places. The UI, the controls, the sandbox itself is full of hiccups and mistakes, and I'm sure the stuff I cannot show you will sour many of you on an already messy experience. Consider this one a bit of a guilty pleasure from me, because there is really not that many horror games where you get to be the killer. And if we look at this from a certain perspective, this game has made me want to get back into the Hitman games. Experience the fun sandbox of being a killer without the low budget jank. I know there is a third game in this franchise, and somehow, in spite of their experiences, it seems to be the worst one. I could take a look at it, but the things I heard from it and knowing the developer effectively ran out of money and can't work on fixing it anymore, makes me feel it may be for the best to end the Lucius experience here. Who knows? I may look at it or not, only time will tell.